This is how I went from cleaning toilets to making $7,000 a month completely remotely. So it's September 2023. I left education. Most of my friends went to uni, but I knew it just wasn't for me, right? So what did I do instead? I applied to, hundreds of jobs, but I ended up getting rejected because I had no experience or relevant experience. The thing with jobs is, to get a job you need experience, but to get experience you need a job. So it's a bit of a catch-22. But I decided to, put my ego aside and get a job as a cleaner, right? And I thought, a job's a job. Let me apply to it. And I got the job, right? Got the job. This is a picture of like me on my way to work in the morning. So what I had to do was I had to wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. It took me like an hour and a bit to get there. And I'd get there for maybe 6 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and I'd clean for a few hours, and then I'd finish. This is a picture of the sun coming up in the morning while I'm on my way to work. So what I'd do is I'd be cleaning toilets and you're putting the bins out, whatever else. But I used to listen to a guy called Greg Plitt. He used to have these motivational videos, and I remember one thing he used to say was, always put the pain before the pride. Always put the pain before the pride, right? Pain before pride, always. And I had that in my head. I was like, you know what? You're just going to put the pain before the pride. Like, this isn't the end all be all. This isn't what you're going to do for life. This is just your circumstances at the moment. Play the cards you're dealt and take it from there. Put the pain before the pride. So that's what I did. And that's what literally got me through doing that. Because it was very humbling for me. Seeing all your friends going traveling, doing whatever else, on Instagram. And I'm just here scrubbing toilets clean. Like, it's... Yeah, and look at me there. Look how rough I look. Look how rough I look. I look about 30 with 3 kids and a mortgage. So I was stressed, underslept or whatever. But one thing I remember doing was, after work, I'd go and read Millionaire Fastlane while sitting under a tree. So maybe half an hour walk from my job, there'd be like a nice little meadow and like a lake there. And I'd just sit under a tree and I just read on my phone for a few hours. And I remember, I used to just try and come up with some ideas of what I could do, because I knew, listen, I need to do something, but I just wasn't sure on the route to take. So what did I do? I ended up getting a job at a warehouse, right? So cleaner and warehouse. So I was doing both at the same time. So for context, I'd wake up at like 5 a.m., get to the cleaner job for 6, read for a few hours, work for a few hours, then go read for, a few hours as well in that, near the lake. And then I'd catch a train to catch another train to catch a 2-hour coach to get to the warehouse. And then I'd catch another train and another train and then another bus home. And I'd get home for 1 a.m. in the morning. Right? And I'd do that every single day on repeat, like clockwork. And I went from like 85 kilos to like 70 kilos. So I lost 15 kilos just by pushing the trolleys away, because I was a picker. So I'd do that. KPIs were like, 100 units picked an hour. So I was literally running with these trolleys, and I lost a lot of weight because I wasn't really eating at the time as well. So that was a win. So that was a little win I had. But if you look at my face, right, whew, who is that guy? Who is that guy? Right? I look cooked completely. I was underslept, chronic stress, cortisol was probably through the roof, but I just had to do that. I just had to get through it. And I was listening to Greg Plitt on the way there, right? I was listening to stuff, motivational stuff, right? I wasn't sure on the path to take still, but I knew, listen, like, push through this, stack some cash, get some money in the bank, and then you can decide what the next move is. This is me kicking my feet up. Like, I remember, like, I'd have like blisters and sores, and I'd, bro, they would hurt so bad, and the only relief I got was just kicking my feet up after that on the train. That's the coach there to work, 2 hours, and that's the warehouse, right? From October, I also managed to get a job in Tesco. So some of you guys in the UK probably know Tesco. If you're in the US, you probably don't. But I got a job at Tesco, a supermarket, right? Groceries. I was doing groceries, and here's me stacking, organizing the milk. And I remember getting the job. I remember speaking to the guy. I was like, do you have KPIs? He's like, not really. You just kind of put the stuff on the shelf. I was like, whoa. this is cush. This is like a really really good job. Like this is cushy. Like, you know, I can get used to this. Like this was a good job. And I mean, looking back on it, I was like, what am I thinking? But even then, like at that point in time, I was like over the moon, because compared to the job I was doing, it's like, this is way easier. So at one point I was working the warehouse and this, but I left that and I was just doing this. Around this time I found Charlie Morgan's content. Right, he had maybe like 10,000 subscribers at the time. And, you know, I started getting interested in this idea of, you know, growing an agency. You know, I looked into it, him and maybe I think Joel Kaplan's content, watching them. I thought, you know what, let me target the chiropractor niche. So like every day after work, or the days I wasn't working, I'd go into the library and me and my brother would just go through websites of chiropractors, find the email address, whatever, scrape 2 leads to do outreach to. But to be completely transparent, I ended up doing, you know, not taking much action. I got comfortable and complacent on my job. And literally like when the new year rolled around, maybe when it got to like March, April, May, June, like there was no work being done. I just took up more shifts at work to earn more money, and that was like, there was no leverage in that. So I got into a bit of a rut mentally. So August came around, I was like, okay, something needs to change, right? Something needs to change. I don't want to be heading in the same direction. So I ended up handing in my notice in August. I'm so grateful for that. Right, so grateful. And I ended up getting a sales job, a door-to-door sales job, right? I thought at that time, my thought process was, listen, like sales is something I knew in the back of my head. Sales is a skill. It's a skill you can always have for life. Sales and marketing, I knew that in my head. Sales is one of them, right? The easiest thing I could do was get into sales, right? The most accessible thing for me to do. So I got into sales, door to door. There's me, got my shirt on. There's me at the door as well, looking drippy, looking fresh. Got the fresh suit trousers on. You know what I mean? Come on. But that was me there, right? This was my interview. This was some of the things that make me do while I was working at the job. So like every day, they do like goals, income goal, recruitment goal, develop like networking goal. So like every single day they do like a review on yesterday and how that went and what your goals were and what to improve on, right? And we'll run 2 pitches and whatever else. So at that time I remember I wasn't making any money and I got my first sale in my first week, which was £15. But this was like less than a 9 to 5. Right? So I wasn't making like literally any money. Like that wasn't even break even. I was still at a loss. I spent more money on petrol, on fuel. So I remember like my parents speaking to me, like my mom and dad, they were talking to me. They're like, "What are you doing this for? Like you're literally losing money. Like what are you doing? This is a scam job." And in my head, I was like, "Okay, maybe there's something like some truth to what they're saying." But I remember thinking like the ROI is not in the financial income. It's in the skill set I'm learning. Objection handling, how to deal with rejection, you know, building grit. And that's how I was approaching this job. It wasn't necessarily, you know, I'm here to earn. Of course I wanted to earn. But in the back of my head, I took this job with the intention of building that skill set. And that's why I did it. That's a picture of like the villages we'd go to. And the sunset was absolutely beautiful. That's my bike. I mean, the highlight of my day was literally, I'd get to the office, back to the office at like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And I'd ride home, and it was like so peaceful. I just ride home, and I was like, oh, you know, because I'd be on my feet all day, and it was just some sort of like I got to my release in a way, right? Really enjoyed that. I think this was the guy who ran the marketing company. He took a picture of me here, revving my bike at night, and he put that in like the group chat, like, hey, you know, Mo's got a bike. Whoa, he was a bike guy as well, so I think that's probably why. But anyway, September 2023. Right? So literally a month after that, I applied to a different role, right? This was a more, like it was a better niche essentially. It was home improvements, you know, helping people with, you know, like damp, mold, you know, guttering, all these type of home renovations essentially. But it was in like rougher areas, right? So more rundown areas, lower income in a way. I became number 1 rep pretty quickly. I think within my first week. And I attribute that to what I did the month prior, right? I built that skill set, objection handling, rejection, going through day by day what I could improve on. And that meant when I started on this was a role where not many people had formal door-to-door training in this role. I did. So when I started, I just cleaned up, right? I quite enjoyed it, actually. I mean, I used to hit bonuses, and, commissions were very, predictable as well. Like, I knew, listen, I can easily hit bonus every week for multiple weeks, right? But the only caveat to that was, the only thing holding me back, right? Well, one of many was, one, these are the places I was knocking. Literally, the car's being stripped, the van's being stripped, the door's off, this is off. There's a sign saying no drug dealing. If you're knocking doors in a place that says no drug dealing, it's a questionable area, right? I mean, this really made me laugh. I remember seeing it. I was like, what are we doing knocking here, right? There's me and the cat on my break. Cute cat. But these are the type of areas, right? I remember like thinking, do I really want to do this every single day? It was kind of depressing. It was literally depressing, especially at winter. My hands are freezing, right? Literally, I mean, I'm hands in my pockets, hunched off, going through the snow. I was knocking in the snow when it was snowing. I was knocking like literally 365 days, bar Christmas or any other holidays. But it was literally day in, day out. Not just summer, it was winter time as well. We'd knock literally all the time. Initially, I planned on staying on this role for, I thought in my head, like a year. I thought, you know what, stay in a year, build your skill set, build up your bank balance, and then, move to something else. But I got complacent, like I did in the job before. I got comfortable and ended up staying longer. What happened was, a few reps joined. When I was thinking of leaving, a few reps joined. And I trained them up, and it was I really enjoyed working with them, because especially like I was a quote-unquote team leader in a way, because I trained them up. And it was fun, but also it made me complacent, right? Because like deep down, when I got home, I'd spend, an hour or two going on the bus to get to work, right? An hour or two in the morning, an hour or two coming home. I wasn't getting paid for this. I remember thinking, like, what am I doing? Honestly, like, I get home, I go to the gym, come home, like, that's my whole life. Like, I'm doing nothing with my life. But it was comfortable enough. Like, it was just literally comfortable enough. Like in the job before, like in this job here, like, I remember one thing people used to say in this role all the time. It was like, we started off as, a Christmas temp too. We started off on a temporary role too. But we've been here 16 years now. I remember thinking, what am I doing here? Literally, what am I doing here? Like, in the back of my head, I was like, what? I'm in the wrong place, right? They're like, you know what? Before you know it, you'll be here 20 years. And these people were comfortable enough to where they'd work the job, but and they'd rant about the job. They're like, oh, this job is, horrible. I hate it. I wish I could do something else. They had degrees. They had like, engineering degrees, mathematics degrees, whatever. They'd go to university. And I remember thinking, like, this sounds like a nightmare to me. Like, literally a nightmare. So that's why I left this job. But I fell into the same, thought process here. I was like, I'm getting too comfortable, right? I'm getting way too comfortable here. Like, this is scaring me. I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I need to make a change. And it was like I'd go through periods of thinking like that, but then I just get comfortable enough. And then I have a moment where, I just had enough, literally had enough. And then it would just be like up and down, up and down, up and down, no action being taken. No action being taken at this time, right? So we got to, March 2025. I think February, I remember. We went on a trip with the family. This was the first time I left the country in probably like 11 years, right? I hadn't been out of the country for that long. And it was the first time I really took, a significant break from my door-to-door sales role, right? And this gave me the clarity I needed, I remember, right? Because before this, I was just, I was kind of lost, to be completely honest. I was very lost. I went, on this trip with my family. I did no work. I didn't even think about work. And I just spent time just thinking about what am I going to do with my life. And I remember praying to God. I was like, God, like, guide me. Like, I want some direction in my life. Help me get... I used to make this prayer where I used to ask God, give me the skill set needed to achieve my goals, right? I didn't pray for the monetary outcome. I'd pray for the skill set required and the work ethic required. And that's how I'd approach my prayers. And that's one of the prayers I made while I was abroad. As soon as I got home, I got into a bit of a rut, right? because I was like, okay, I can't just go back to work now, right? I want to use this as a entry point, as a start point to change. So that's what I did. But I didn't go into work. I said I was sick, but I wasn't sick. I was on Twitter, money Twitter, researching, what is this, what's that, agency, high ticket closing, high ticket setting. I applied to a few closer roles, I applied to a few setting roles, didn't head back because I had no experience, I had no connections, I had nothing, literally nothing. And I wasn't even applying to, roles. I had no availability for roles either. Like, I was just, trying to hit the jackpot, bam, 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 just apply, whatever. I wasn't even recording Looms, I don't think. I was maybe trying my best at Looms. I didn't even know what to say, really. Just, anyway. But then I found a guy on Twitter called, I remember, Louis Appert. And I saw this guy and he said, you know what, I made $7,000 a month. And he was like 18. I was thinking, how's he made $7,000 a month at 18? And there's me, years older than him, and I'm not making anywhere close to that. So I messaged him. I was like, hey mate, are you here's my experience, I'd like to apply for this role. I didn't hear back. He ghosted me. If you've seen this, Louis, he ghosted me. And he knows this. He probably laughed at him. So Louis, if you're watching this, you little up. Why'd you ghost me for? Anyway, he ghosted me, right? I followed up with him. I said, hey, you got any experience? You got any advice for me? Like, I'm just starting out. He gave me some advice. Fair play to him. Like, he gave me some advice. He said, focus on like networking, improving your value, putting yourself out there. So I was like, what? I saw he was looking to, he was doing some coaching. I was like, can we just hop on a call, like discuss your coaching really? Because I'm interested in, really taking action with this. So I booked a call. And I remember, like, on the day of the call, I just got back from door to door. And I was contemplating, should I even hop on this call or not? I remember this. Because I was so tired, I just wanted to crash and just scroll reels. And I was like, you know what, man? Enough's enough, just hop on the call. So I hopped on the call, right? I hopped on the call. I ended up giving him all the money I had, right? Because I was like, I want to invest in myself. Enough's enough. I need to make a change. And I remember, like, in my head, before I paid him for his services of coaching, I was like, man, like, I was objection handling myself. I was like, you know what? Like, this is all the money you have. But then I was like, okay, but you've made no progress. Like, you need to make a change. So I was like, you know what? Let me put my money where my mouth is and just go all in on this. So I did. And I went down to £64.60 in the bank. Right? So that's like $70, $80 in the bank total. And this was scary for me at the time. But I knew, listen, I needed to be a bit scared for me to actually get somewhere. So I started with him. That same day of the call, I sent multiple Looms to roles. I applied to multiple roles. Within 24 hours, I believe the next day, I started on my first role, booked my first few calls, and I managed to get my first PIF. My first £5,000 deal, which is like $6,000, $7,000, right? I was ecstatic. I was like, wow, like this is proof this works, right? This is amazing. Sure, it's not amazing money, like, whatever. It's not life-changing, but like, okay, this works, right? So I remember thinking, like, I was buzzing at this time. I was like, wow, like, wow. What I did was, at that time, I remember, because this role wasn't really the best role for someone who was just starting out. Although I got some results, so I transitioned into a role which was more beginner friendly in a way, and had a longer, it had a longer term opportunity. It was more long term for me, rather than like a short thing where I could hop on, make some money and then, get off. This was longer term, where I could grow with the offer and improve my skill set, and had like the guidance, the feedback systems there for me to improve my skill set as a setter. And that was what was very important to me, feedback systems, right? That ended up being a very great decision because, we had, calls every week, and my skill set just went from 0 to 100 real fast. Well, not 100, maybe like 60, 70. But the point is, like, my skill set improved so much to the point where even my setting coach was asking me questions like, because he wasn't sure what to do, right? Because his experience in setting didn't necessarily translate well to what I was doing. So I had to kind of figure stuff out on the go, right? And all that improv, ultimately led to me becoming, a more skilled version of myself had I not been on the offer. The offer was outbound, right? It wasn't an inbound role, it was outbound. I was DMing people, I was initiating conversations, and then I was getting them to book calls and then close, right? And I brute forced my way to $20,000, right? I generated for that offer, $20,000. I'd work, 8 to 12 hours a day, every single day, and I got there. Once I got that result, boom, I used that to leverage myself into better opportunities, right? If we go here, I was continuing to set on the offer, but while I was setting on the offer, I kept applying to new roles. I was like, okay, I've collected more cash. I'm more confident in my ability. I know more about, the back-end systems, the VSLs, this or that, how the whole funnel works, right? My understanding of sales as a whole improved. And that's that was very helpful for me. So my confidence at interviews just went from, to bam, right? I know what I'm talking about. I'm confident I can deliver results. I will be the hardest worker on the team. And I was just hungry, right? So I ended up getting a one offer, right? I had 4 interviews, 4 jobs that were offered, 4 roles that were offered to me. I picked the best one and ended up being an amazing decision. I started, within a few days, I collected over $7,000, right? Collected in cash, not revenue. Like I generated this, right? For the offer. I was like, okay, listen, clearly something works here, right? Clearly something works here. I need to go all in. So what did I do? I left my door-to-door sales job, which I was still doing part-time, and I left the last offer. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go all in on this, put all my time and effort into this, and see this through, because this is the highest leverage thing I can be doing at this moment in time, right? This is the thing that's going to move the needle the most. So that's what I did. I quit the jobs. I said, sorry, I can't come into door-to-door anymore. Thank you, appreciate it. Quit that job, and I left the last offer, right? So I went all in on this, right? All in on this. In my first 2 weeks, I did $43,000 collected in cash for the offer. Way higher than that in revenue. Probably closer to $50,000, $60,000 in revenue for that offer, right? And I finished April making, $1,500. So $1,500 in commissions in the month of April. What this led to me, this just allowed me to have a renewed confidence in myself and my ability, because I was like, okay, this isn't like the most amount of money, but at least this is heading in the right direction and it's working. Like something's working here, right? So I became even more hungry, more determined. I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to be the best setter on this offer. And very quickly I became top setter on the offer. Within maybe, I think, a week or so, I just put in more work than everyone else. Like, people probably ask, how did you get there? What happened? You just do more volume. I did more volume. I spent more time on this. When like people would put CTAs on stories, or like, when the marketing team would put something to generate leads, I would be up the whole day when that post was up, waiting for leads to come in, right? I'd be awake for, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, even sometimes like 20 hours. I'd be awake the whole day till 8 a.m. the next day, getting the leads, working the leads, doing more volume, right? And that just led to me, ended up I booked more calls, the closers took more calls, they closed more of my deals, and I made more commissions, right? And I made a significantly more amount of commissions than anyone else on the team as well, right? And it got to the point where, especially towards, May, I became confident in my ability to set so much to the point where I started closing leads in the DMs, right? So I wouldn't even let the closers take the calls, 1, or 2. What I would do is, once they had the call and didn't close, I'll re-engage the lead and close the lead in the DMs for like 10 to 15% commissions, right? And all this in conjunction together, I ended up May in $3,000 in commissions. So I doubled. In a month, I doubled my commissions, right? I went from making $1,500 to $3,000 in literally a month by just brute forcing my way there, doing the action required. Fast forward to June, right? So even while I'm doing this, I kept applying to new roles, right? Or even offers that, had rejected me in the past, I've reached out to them again, or they reached out to me because they saw the numbers I was putting out, right? So say they rejected me back in, April or March when I applied with no experience. They were like, oh my God, like, we're so interested in getting you on, blah, blah, blah. Because I had solid numbers under my belt, right? So what happened was this led to me, securing an Airbnb role, which was the first stuff I ever did, which was Airbnb arbitrage. So I had the contextual information, I had the context, I had the knowledge to draw back from. That helped me stand out from the rest of the setters on the interview, and I got the role. Same thing. As soon as I started, very quickly became top setter again, right? You can see top setter. That's yesterday's cash collected. That's, I think, well over 10k USD. Top. You can see, right? 1 week I had a 100% close rate with a closer. No other setter had that. No other setter had that at all. Every single call I booked that week closed, right? There's other setters were, 20%, whatever. So, they could have complained about the leads. They were complaining about the leads being, not the best, whatever. But this just shows, like, clearly I was doing something different, right? Clearly my approach was something different. So I became top setter on this offer as well, while I was still working the previous offer. So I was still earning, commissions. I was still getting deals from the other offer while I was on this offer as well. So I was doing 2 offers at the same time. So I was literally working, 16-hour days, 14 to 16-hour days every single day. Like, my whole life was setting. I'd wake up, clear my inboxes, respond to all the leads, have breakfast, go to the gym, back all the way into the night. Repeat every single day. Like, my whole life was setting. I was so hungry and dedicated to prove myself because I knew how good this opportunity was. Which translated this for June. For May or June? Yeah, that should say June. So for June, I ended up June with, nearly $1,500 more, right? So I made, $4,245, which was like from April. April I made, I think, $1,500. May I made $3,000, and now in June I made nearly $4,500. So it's going up in increments of $1,500 every month, right? And this at this point I was working 2 offers at the same time. Fast forward to July, right? Still working 2 offers at the same time. But since May, when I started on this offer, right? So May, June time, my skill set in terms of DM closing was steadily improving. Right? So I focused more on the DM closing side of things because I knew this was a game changer for me to take control and to increase my commissions, right? With the same amount of lead flow, with the same amount of everything else, this is completely dependent on myself, on my skill set. So I focused on that, right? You remember probably I'm mentioning here, like, I got my first DM close on the previous offer. I was DM closing on both offers at this time. Both offers, right? So literally month by month, conversation by conversation, I was improving. I'd follow up with leads who didn't close on closing calls, handle the objections, and then close them. Right? That's all it was for the most part. Sometimes even leads who didn't even have a closing call, I'd close them. Right? So I literally did the whole process myself, and I got paid for that as well. Right? I got paid like 15% plus, bonuses, wherever, for doing the whole thing. Right? Because I was doing the whole sales process myself. Right? And I was, like I mentioned, I was still DM closing on the other offer as well. Like, the other setters were asking me for insights and tips as to what I was doing, because other setters were making like this much and I was making this much, and they could see that, and they started like copying what I was doing, adopting my, my pitch styles and, my language and how I'd approach it. But what I knew at that time was like the highest leverage thing for me to do was to focus on the DM closing side of things. DM closing will literally save my comms. DM closing on both offers, whilst also booking in calls, led to me making $7,000 in a single month in July, which is more than what most closers make. And I made that as a setter, as an appointment setter, right? So it got to July. I made that $7,000 a month, and then I knew, okay, I needed to make a change, right? Like, some people, they would have stagnated. They would have been like, okay, I made 7,000. Let me continue setting. I knew, but I'm working, 12, 14, 15-hour days here. I'm working literally every single day. Like, my whole life is setting. Like, sure, that's good for stacking my cash, but that can't be everything I do, right? That can't be literally everything I do. And that was my whole life at that time. I was just setting. That was my whole life. So I knew something needed to change. And so I came across an opportunity which was for management, for setter management. I thought, you know what? After speaking to my mentor, there's a picture of Louis there. Let me get into management. So I got into management, assigned, my first few clients on that. But I continued, DM closing one of the offers because I was like, let me test the waters a bit, see how it is, right? So I was DM closing. I was still earning income, a few $1,000s from that while I was doing management, right? So, I used all my experience on the previous offers and learned their systems, and I replicated that. I found out what worked with myself best with setting, DM close frameworks, SOPs, everything. And what that led to was, within, a few days of me starting on the offer as a manager, a setter with no prior experience with DM closing, DM closed a $5,000 deal in the DMs, which they got paid, closer percentage for, right? So, 7 to 10%, 15%, whatever it was, right? They got paid for a closer for a lead in the DMs they closed, right? This was for someone who had no experience in sales before, as in DM closing before, no closing experience before, just a setter who I gave some guidance to, and he managed to close that deal, right? For that first month, from July to August, I 3 times the total revenue of that offer in my first month, right? I came in, I built the systems, processes, got the team locked in, and I managed to 3 times it, not even double it, 3 times it, right? And that's when I knew, listen, okay, I needed to leave management. Like, I needed to leave setting completely, right? Because like my previous, times when I was, say, setting on other offers, I knew this was something I needed to go all in on, right? So I went all in on it, right? And I've been doing that, today, right? So from then to now, I've been doing setter management, right? It's not really been the smoothest journey. It comes with its own set of challenges, own set of struggles. You have to learn a lot of new skills, which I have learned, how to hire, how to train, how to create SOPs, how to incentivize your team, how to fire, for example, when, it's needed, when it's required. These are all skills I've had to learn. I never had these skills before. So I've learned that. And I'm grateful for being in an opportunity where I can learn that, right? And now I'm in Spain, for example. I'm in Spain. The sun's just set. Hence why you watched the video and you saw it getting progressively darker because the sun's just gone down. I'm in, Malaga in Spain. And I'm in a position where I'm fortunate enough to just work from my laptop, a few hours a day, essentially. I'm able to travel. A year ago, I was not able to do this, right? I'm fortunate enough where I can go anywhere I want and still earn an income, not worry about having to clock into a job. Or, if I'm not here, I'm not going to earn, right? And it's like, just, if you just rewind a few months, like March, right? March, or February, for example, just this year, had I not taken that first step to get where I am now, I would not be where I am now. That's the crazy part, right? I was scared of taking that first step so much, and I put off taking action on anything so much. But I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna go all in. I'm just gonna do it. And I'm so grateful for myself for taking that first step. Because it's got me where I am now. Like, it's literally got me to where I am now, right? That one decision of choosing to, change my life, pursue setting, investing in my skill set, literally changed the course of my life, right? This is where I am. This was like breakfast. This is absolutely beautiful. There's me and Luby having some nice, pizza, amazing Italian pizza place. And this is Malaga. It was so beautiful. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be in a position where, I'm able to generate income from this, right? So my advice to you watching, like, if you're in the position where I was just a few months ago, take that first step. You have nothing to lose. Literally nothing to lose. Take that first step. Commit to learning that skill set, because honestly, it will change your whole life. It will change the course of your life, right? You will end up, cruising along here, and just before you know it, will just go up here, right? Sure, it won't be, come directly up, but progressively, you will change your life. That's what I'm trying to say. You will change your life by taking that first step. And some of you guys, well, you might be watching this, for example, thinking, I've saw information about, I've saw videos about appointment setting, I've saw this or I saw that, right? My advice to you will literally be just just take action. Just start now. You've got nothing to lose. Just start now. Every day where you're contemplating starting is a day wasted. And I made that mistake. And so I don't want you to make that same mistake. I wasted years. The one thing I regret is wasting years of my life not taking action. So if this can help you, you yourself, who are watching this, take action on something and decide, enough's enough. I want to start now. Then, I'm happy I made this video, and I'm grateful. Right? So, yeah, that's my journey so far. I'm excited to where I'm headed. I'm very excited to see where I end up in the next few months, or where this journey takes me. But that's just a bit about myself and my journey so far. Yeah, catch you in the next one.